Welcome everyone to the second season of The Great Debate, the show you all have been wanting more of.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me on to be a part of this. Although I don't really know why this took so long to happen, seeing how everyone on your channel has been demanding more of these.
And then you complain that none of your videos get any views.
So you're telling me that's what we're here for today? To make fun of me?
No, you're actually here to debate over the best Iron Man film, the third one.
Hold on a second. You're not supposed to have an opinion.
I'm sure you all know how this works, but if Mr. Foley would be so kind as to explain to everyone who may be new.
You want me to explain what's happening here? I mean, I'm the guest. Isn't this your job?
We're trying to give you more lines. Be happy.
Alright, I'll take what I can get. So, for those of you watching at home, what's basically going to be happening is Anthony's going to ask myself and Toxic some questions about Iron Man 3, some that usually differ among different fan bases. We will give our points, our arguments, and then a closing statement, and then you will all decide in the comments section which one had the better arguments, what your own thoughts are on Iron Man 3, and so on and so forth.
Okay, and with all that out of the way, let's get on to the first question. Seeing how large of a plot point it was, how did you each feel about the representation of Tony Stark's PTSD in the film? Mr. Foley?
In my honest opinion, the PTSD that Tony is dealing with, it honestly makes perfect sense for the first post-Avengers movie in the MCU, because here, you really see the effect that the Avengers has taken on Tony Stark. He can't sleep, he feels more of a drive to protect the people that he loves, to protect the world, and if anything, for me anyway, it shows more of how he's really developed as a character throughout the MCU. Because as we all remember, in the first Iron Man, he went from being a guy who didn't give a shit at all to becoming a guy who absolutely gave a shit. I think you see more of that there because now he knows what's out there. There are gods, there are aliens, there's the potential for the entire universe to die. I think now it's given him more of an effect, it's taken a toll on him, and you see it. Now he has a bit more of a drive to want to save the universe. I think it really does a lot for his character, and it shows the effect that a universe-ending potential consequence can have on even someone like Tony.
Very well said. Now, Toxic?
I think that in-universe, for Tony Stark to have PTSD absolutely does make sense. I mean, everything that he dealt with in the first movie, the second movie, was kind of out of his depth, but within his management, if that makes any sense. He was able to get a handle on it and eventually take care of it, largely by himself. This is the first time that he required a team effort for something that he didn't even think is real, something that he didn't think is possible. But at the same time, it was a terrible portrayal of the illness. I personally suffer from it, and I didn't feel like I was properly represented. Maybe I don't have it to the same degree as him, but for something like that, you would want there to be identifiable triggers that when the audience sees it in the movie, it's like, oh no, you get a tense feeling and you wonder if Tony's going to be able to get out of the situation before it escalates. And then moving on with the rest of the MCU, it hardly ever even comes up. It's barely even a factor outside of this post-credit scene. And then, sure, he's wrecked with guilt moving forward, but it's never to the point where you would consider him to be in a state of traumatic stress. And without that being in there, it feels more like just another element that they put into this movie to stuff it like the last one.
I like that one too. Very well said, the both of you. Now, on to the next question. It's often said by many that the film feels insignificant to the greater Marvel Cinematic Universe. Seeing that it's the first film to take place after the events of the Avengers, where do you each stand on that? Toxic?
Well, I mean, considering everything that happens in the film, the aforementioned PTSD, the Clean Slate program, the Iron Legion, Pepper getting turned into a weapon and killing a man and never getting counsel for it, Happy getting injured, the whole extremist thing. There's a lot that happens in the movie, only for none of it to really factor into the greater MCU going forward. And I understand that that's not exactly necessary. Not everything has to be as huge as Guardians of the Galaxy or Avengers Infinity War. But for the first outing since the Avengers, you'd want some continuity established. You'd want the universe to continue to be built up. That way we can get more prepared for the next Avengers movie. Things happen in Tony's character that are very important going forward, but the rest of the movie doesn't even feel canon truly, except for him getting the arc reactor taken out. And the only thing that continues that continuity is that you don't see the light glowing in his chest anymore. I don't even know how they took that out.
You talk a lot.
Am I not a debater?
Mr. Foley? Take it away.
I can understand some of the complaints some people might have that, Iron Man 3 immediately following the Avengers, that's not as, big or explosive or as much of a blockbuster as I guess you could say as the first Avengers. But for me, this gives us more of a personal story with Tony. It gives us more of a character building story. Like for me, what I really appreciate is here, it completely strips away Tony to just himself, you know? There's not as much Iron Man in this movie as there is of Tony Stark. I think that's really important because here, you truly see more of what made Tony a superhero. It's not the Iron Man suit that is his superpower, it is his genius. And you see it more here of him having to use it with, you know, trying to find ways to infiltrate the Mandarin or trying to find ways to find Aldrich Killian, doing what he has to do to, you know, accomplish what he needs to accomplish, and he's stripped away of everything. It's in this moment right here, you just see more of his power, you see more of the genius, you see more of his, I guess you could say, improvisation with his brain. And for me, it also gives a little more relevance towards what he tells Peter in Spider-Man Homecoming, when he looks at him and he says, if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. Here, Tony Stark really proves that for himself, you know? Clearly, he is more than just the suit. He is himself. He is a hero in himself. And I think that's what really makes Iron Man 3 more of a personal story here. Similar to how it does with Captain America the Winter Soldier, you know? It strips away a character, he loses everything, and you really truly see how much of a hero he is.
You might be reaching.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, what else is there to do here?
Fair enough. Final question. You all knew this was happening. So, the Mandarin. Missed opportunity or well done subversion? Mr. Foley?
Okay. First of all, I'm going to say this right now. If you hate Iron Man 3 because you hated the Mandarin twist, I completely understand that. It's safe to say it's probably the most polarizing decision the MCU has made to date. Having said all of that, I'm honestly able to roll with the Mandarin twist because of what it does for Iron Man 3 as a movie. You know, we have this character that is played by Ben Kingsley, who you think is the legit Mandarin with these 10 magical rings that give him these powers, but in this universe, the 10 rings aren't these magical artifacts. It's a terrorist group. So, I mean, I think it's more fitting that they marketed the Mandarin as a terrorist. And I guess for me, when you discover that the Mandarin is a fake, what it provides is a big twist for the movie. And it's a genius twist from a villain point because you see right here, the government's just chasing its tail, you know? It's hunting a threat that doesn't exist, which allows Aldrich Killian, who is the true villain, to go about his, you know, plan without anyone really tracking him down, with no one really suspecting him of anything. It's a really smart move. Should they have done it with the Mandarin? Probably not. They probably should have taken a different route. But, you know, when Aldrich Killian at the end, you know, stands before Tony and says, I am the Mandarin, I mean, I was satisfied with that because, you know, from the perspective of this movie, from what he does, from the way he acts, he is the movie's universe of the Mandarin. I mean, is he the comic book version? No. But the movie took some creative license. I understand that some people couldn't roll with it. I'm someone who was able to. That's what I took away with it. I rolled with it for what it did for the story. That's my opinion on the Mandarin.
Interesting perspective. Toxic?
You know what? That was quite well put, Connor. I'm going to give you points for that. But watch this. This is going to be one hell of a rebuttal. You yourself said earlier that Tony's had his entire world rocked by having to be accepting of the fact that there's gods and aliens and magic now. And all of that happened to him at once. He didn't have a chance to ease into it. It was just, bam, here's all of this. So imagine that while he's still reeling from the last movie, that we keep that ball rolling, that he's forced to fully acclimate to this. That way his next villain is magic-based. And he has to come up with something even better than just the Iron Legion. Because while I get that they wanted to strip the suit away from him and see what was left, they also gave him an army of suits to choose from in the final battle, so that didn't quite work out. However, if you have Tony being forced to fight somebody with magic, because while Extremis was very strange, it was still science, it was still within understanding for him as a character. If you give him something magical to fight, then you're going to have to show Tony being a big brain boy and come up with something so powerful, so unique, such a good suit, kind of like the Bleeding Edge armor in Infinity War, that he can keep up with a 10-ring wielding sorcerer. Now, there's a lot that you could gain from this. It might even change his perspective going into Age of Ultron. It could change his perspective across the entire rest of the MCU, but there's really no way to know. However, I think that singular character change, that one thing that would push Tony Stark forward, is the biggest thing that you'd gain from portraying the Mandarin accurately.
I actually haven't thought of that. Well, boys, we're going to have to get to the final statements now.
Iron Man 3 perfect? No. Do I understand why some people don't like it? Of course. But for me, I do think it's a great time. I think it's a very enjoyable movie. I think it's a great way to kick off Phase 2 of the MCU. I think it's a much better sequel to Iron Man than Iron Man 2 was. I love what it did with the character of Tony. I love what it did to build on the MCU, to show what threats are coming, to show the effect it's having on certain characters. I think it does what it needs to do correctly. I liked seeing what it did as a character piece. Is it one of the best movies? No. But it's a movie I think you can have a great time with when you do consider all that.
I think Iron Man 3 met well. I think it's an enjoyable film. It's fun to watch. I mean, I don't absolutely hate it. But I do think that it had too many cogs moving and it lacked focus for the most part. I also think that it started the whole Marvel humor thing that people talk about so much, because that's where the Banthos became really noticeable. And it also is why people started saying that MCU movies have no stakes, because for everything that happens in that movie, nothing really happens. But, you know, that's just how I feel about it. I also think that Captain America should absolutely be called if the President of the United States has been captured. I don't think there's any way you can explain that to me where it makes sense that they didn't call him. I mean, come on now. It just seems like a no-brainer, right? Like, am I the only one that thinks that's obvious?
And I think we're just about done. Thank you both for coming out.
See you all next time.
Hi guys, my name is Anthony, also known as the Italian Jedi. I'm out here helping Toxic Touch Productions. Expect to see more of me. Bye.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on. I had a blast doing this. I really hope we get to do this again. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to Toxic's channel, and also check out my channel if you haven't gotten the chance to yet. You might like what I'm doing over there too.
Hey, what's up? It's Toxic here, and I had a fantastic time doing this video with my friends Connor and Anthony. They absolutely pulled through for me. You know, I could have done this video by myself, but I didn't want to. And, you know, this is just kind of a teaser for what's coming for the rest of the season. We've got more stuff. We're going to have more guests on. I've got big plans for this series. I hope you don't think I let it die, because there was absolutely no way that was going to happen. But that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Tune in next time.